It's my understanding, Maria, that 7 and 8 are going to be continued based on ordinance. Okay.
Yes.
Necessary. So 7 and 8 will be continued. So that will take care of us. We do have one speaker card on item number 3. If we could just go there first. Jeff, on item number 3. Yes, Maria?
I'm sorry. Item number 3 is a DOT report and resolution relative to the renewal of temporary PPD number 112.
Good afternoon. My name's Jeff Jacoberger. I'm here just speaking in my personal capacity about PPD 112, which is the one block of Gardner Avenue just north of Hollywood Boulevard. I was actually here, I think, a year ago for the last temporary renewal of this temporary parking district, raising an issue. That block has single-family homes. All of the people who live in those single-family homes presumably have a 2-car garage, and because they're old homes, also have a very long driveway where they could park cars. Unfortunately, there are other, I think, legitimate users of that block, including the residents who live in apartment buildings on Hollywood Boulevard, where it's a tow-away zone starting at 7 a.m., which means when those people have to get out and move their cars at 7 a.m., there's no place for them to move their cars. And the second is at that corner of Hollywood and Gardner is St. Thomas Episcopal Church that has 12-step meetings that start at 7:30 every morning and also has a morning service that starts at 8 o'clock. So the real problem there is the prohibition of parking, the nighttime parking that goes all the way to 8 in the morning, which if somehow we could have it set up so that the prohibition only went to 7 in the morning, where people could park on that street for up to 2 hours starting at 7 a.m., the people who live on Hollywood Boulevard who have to move their cars by 7 would have a place to park. The people who are using the church would have a place to park for a short time. And I think this is, sort of an indictment, kind of, I think, of the whole system, in that, the way the whole permit parking system is set up is that the residents sort of get to make exclusive call about what happens to the streets when there are other legitimate users of those streets. And, I know it's a challenge. The people in DOT are understaffed and overworked, but I just hope that there could be some way that we could come up with a system that actually adequately weighs the needs of all of the people who have legitimate needs to park on the streets. Thanks.
Thank you. Jeffrey,
I just asked, you lay this on the desk. My Deputy Sheriff Shapiro's here. She'll discuss it with you. Where do you live?
I live in the Miracle Mile, so I don't...
It's a philosophical thing. This is not, you're not necessarily intimately aware, but...
Well, I'm intimately aware because I attend 12-step meetings at that church most mornings.
You come here because of that
Yes.
issue, for that one issue?
Yeah.
Sharon, discuss it, you see there, and I know you have the top brass there, the Transportation Department, they have an idea. It could be 8 o'clock as opposed to 7 o'clock. And lay it on
Okay,
the
so we'll
desk.
hold on the desk? Okay, we'll hold it on the desk. Okay, thank you. This is on item number 3. We have, if you'd like to be on record, Mr. Alacona supporting 2, 4, and 5.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll have Mr. Alacone count, he's voting yes on 2, 4, and 5 as well. 3's hold on the desk. And we'll go back to item 7 and 8. Mr. Alacone are continued. We're waiting for an ordinance on those items. So we'll go back to item number 1.
Item number 1 is a DOT report and resolution relative to the establishment of a preferential parking district 27 for the Del Rey Laguna neighborhood.
You want it?
And we do have public speaker cards. Mr. Rosendahl, would you like to go to public speaker cards first? This is in your district?
I would love to go to public speaking cards, and I know that some folks have a video. If they want to tie it into their presentation, it's 2 minutes per person, so I think the video is 5 minutes. If you want to do the whole video, that would be almost 3 people. If not, you could do just 2 minutes of it. It's really your pleasure. You would? So is it possible then for 2 of you to be actually the video, so to speak, so that it allows...
Yeah, that will be me also.
Very good.
Okay.
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 Sorry.
So,
Mr. Chair,
well, just,
opposition has equal time to...
sir, we haven't gotten there yet, so when we get to that point, we'll ask the city attorney on the advice. I think what it is whoever comes to speak on those items. I don't think we do necessarily, unless it is a legal matter for a land use decision, that there's a requirement. But if you want to advise us, Mr. City Attorney, when we get to that point. So who would like, the people we have here, Eric Undres, Scott Bier, Bernard, thank you. Jeffrey Lullen, okay. Karen Cantor. And then we have 2 that are against. So however you all want to come up here, and then you can show the video and others, whatever time left to speak.
Okay.
And why don't you all come up so that we can mentally see when 5 minutes is 3 people or 2.5 people?
Yes, we'd like to start with the video if that's okay.
Yeah.
Is the video going on that TV right there?
Oh, great. Now we know what the flat screen does.
All of us here are residents of Playa del Rey. We've been working on this thing for 4 years, and this is kind of
Start the clock for them, please. They did say it was 5 minutes.
Who said start the clock?
Mr. Davis,
Who's Mr. Davis?
gentleman over here who is opposed to it.
Who's the chair of the committee here?
Residents of Preferential Parking District Number 27 also have to compete for overnight parking spots with mobile homes, gang members, and fishermen that choose not to use the parking lots. Other people that come to the park after it is closed come to drink alcohol, have sex, and vandalize our neighborhood.
You gonna run this when we get to council? You gonna run this when we get to
The residents of Preferential Parking District Number 27 are requesting that the approximate 30 open spots that surround their homes to have a preferential parking permit from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., the same as the parking lots. This preferential parking permit will ensure that the residents of Preferential Parking District Number 27 will have a place to park when returning home. And in addition, it will also curb the illegal activity that happens from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. when the parks are closed. It is understood that the major concern of the Coastal Commission is that there should be alternative parking for fishermen. There are 39 free parking spots located at Clover Boulevard and Pacific Avenue, a 3-minute walk away, that are
Really?
not the remaining residences of Preferential Parking District Number 27.
Isn't that fun?
There are also hundreds of 24-hour paid parking spots in weather direction, a 10-minute walk, in the marina. These parking spots are also not from the main residences. Hopefully this video has demonstrated why Preferential Parking District Number 27 needs to have permanent parking. The residents of Preferential Parking District Number 27 are continually subjected to disturbing and unlawful acts that happen after 10 p.m. when the parking lots are closed. These acts are directly affecting our quality of life, and we would hope the Coastal Commission and others involved with our petition can empathize with our situation and grant the residents of Preferential Parking District Number 27 27, preferential parking from 10 a.m. to 6 a.m.
So I think she put on 5 minutes, so we just used 4 minutes of your time on that, so.
Okay. So 5 minutes total for all of us to speak, is that what
Now,
that
each
was?
of you, and just trying to
Gets
be
2 minutes,
fair,
right?
so, yeah, so
Right.
2 minutes each.
Right.
So
a
for
couple
those of you
people
that filled,
sacrifice their 2
yeah, 2
minutes
people would
speaking.
sacrifice their 2 minutes.
Gotcha.
So whoever would like to speak, who,
My name's Scott Bernard. I'm a resident of Playa del Rey. Bill, I want to thank you for your assistance in getting us this far along, and I'm glad we could finally get down here and have this conversation. The bottom line is nothing good happens at the beach after 10 o'clock. The parks are closed. The parking lots are closed. The beach is closed. People come down there to do, the gangs come down there, they're partying in our streets. They leave their trash, as you saw in the video. They're having sex. They're drinking booze. They're vandalizing property. They're intimidating the people that live down there. My wife's afraid to take a dog out at night because of what's in our streets, and as you see it right there, it goes on all summer long and most of the winter. Residents have nowhere to park if you come home after dark. The parking lots are closed that are owned by the Coastal Commission and the City of Los Angeles Parks and Recs because of prior gang activities. All they've done is transfer that parking problem right onto our streets, and they close their parking lots and everyone just parks or parties in our streets as opposed to their parking lots. As you saw, every night when these parking lots close, they just drive up and down our streets for the next couple hours searching places to park. The situation is completely degrading the quality of our life. Every morning, our streets are littered with bottles, trash, used condoms. When we have kids, you don't walk them out in the street. You got to be careful where you take them because of the activities that take place out in our area. There's disturbances most nights throughout the summer there where literally residents have to call the police down to here, down to our area on an ongoing basis. We've had a gang shooting where someone was killed 20 feet from our building. Another person was critically injured. We've had another gang violent activity where they lit a car on fire with someone inside of it. We've worked close to 4 years to get to this point right here, and we would, I know that if this was going on in front of any of your homes, you would do everything in your power to change it and to make it right. It's not acceptable that this is our quality of life because of what's going on there.
thank you. Thank you very much.
I'm done, so you can tell them that.
Yeah, my name is Eric Andres. I'm also a resident of Playa del Rey and this area. And one of the important things that we want to make clear is that there are a number of alternative spots for the public to park in, which are not disrupting the residents of this area. And they're no more than 5 or 10 minute walk to this area. And so that's a very important aspect.
Can I
of this.
interrupt for a second, Madam Chair?
Yeah, stop the clock for a minute.
When you say there's alternate parking there, is this county lots or city lots? Whose parking lots are they? Do you know?
Well, the Marina del Rey wharf area, I don't know who's responsible for those.
We're thinking, off the record, we're going to ask DOT to help me on this, that it's county lots, but I just want to know who has access to it. Well, maybe it isn't county.
It is
Maybe it's city.
Right.
Well, we'll find out from DOT.
County.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Okay.
That's one alternative, and then the second alternative is
Turn the clock on.
That's fine. And is the commercial street with commercial property on Culver, and there's a number of parking spots on there as well. In fact, I think there's over the amount of spots that we're asking to be part of this permitting process. So, to us, we're really not taking anything away other than just moving out of the residential area into a commercial area where residents aren't going to be disrupted on a continual basis. And as Scott has said, families are very weary to take out their family members for a nice little walk, or to take the dog out for a walk, or to walk down to the corner store to pick up a gallon of milk. You just don't want to do that because you don't know what you're going to encounter out there. And there's been many nights where people have parked in front of our house, which is not even a parking spot, it's a red spot, and they park there and they do whatever they're doing, which is not a really pretty sight to look at. And it's very frustrating to be a homeowner there and see this activity going on a continual basis.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate your time.
Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Karen Cantor. I live in Playa del Rey. I don't live in specifically this particular area, but I know exactly what they're talking about because I have a number of friends and acquaintances down there. It is downright scary to come there after 10 o'clock at night. There's a real sense of that you're not safe getting out of your car. Frankly, I've seen more sex down there than I ever saw on a college campus in the 60s. You know, it's scary to see what's going on down there. So I'm hoping that we can give these people some relief and also make it safer for the rest of the community to be able to come down here and visit our friends.
What college did you go to?
That's Tom's time. Stop the clock.
Thank you. All right.
Just Santa Barbara.
We do have, you did have like 1 minute left on yours, and so I know you two gave up your 2 minutes. Would one of you like to do 1 minute? Okay, thank you.
I want to begin by thanking you for your public service. It has taken a lot of effort and a lot of time.
Record.
My name is Jeffrey Lulla, 6400 Pacific Avenue in Playa del Rey. This problem has taken years to get to this point. The people who live down in our community struggle every single day because open parking anytime. People can come in and park all night. They can live in their cars. They can sleep in their cars. You've seen the video. You've heard the other testimony. I won't take up a lot more time. I just implore you to be a little bit empathetic to our situation and our needs. I realize that a lot of people want to come to the beach at all hours of the night to do fishing and whatever else they want to do that's not illegal, and there are options for them to park elsewhere very close by that's not in front of our homes. And that's what we're asking for, is if you provide us permit-only parking, you allow us to have a better quality of life and much greater safety for our families. And that's really what we're asking you to appreciate. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So the time utilized was 4 minutes for the video and 6 minutes for this. So there's 10 minutes on the other side. We do have two speakers in opposition, Peggy Lee Kennedy and John Davis. You can determine between the two of you and the amount of time.
Madam Chair, just to make sure, it's 10 minutes total, right?
10 minutes total, yes.
Okay. Hi.
Equal time.
5 to each if they want. Yeah, yes.
Hi.
Hi.
My name is Peggy Lee Kennedy, and thank you very much. I spent Saturday night and last night walking all the blocks and driving the blocks in the proposed PPD area in the lagoon area, and I walked around a single woman alone. I talked to all kinds of people. I saw couples holding hands walking, and I actually went in and out of all the open bars and talked to the people. I don't even drink, and so I spent a lot of time. I was there until almost 1 o'clock in the morning this morning, and I have to tell you that these are exaggerations, and problems may exist similar to anywhere else. I went to a Catholic university, and I'm sure there's plenty more sex there that's going on in this area at night. It's obviously, and a lot of these streets are not directly in front of anybody's home. They are in front of parks. In fact, the majority of the angle parking is not in front of anybody's home. These are parks. These are streets that have already been taken away at night. I believe this is a discrimination, and it may be a constitutional issue. These are public streets, and they are not directly in front of somebody's house, but the homeowner does not own those streets. The streets that I think that are in front of the home, and most of these homes have garages and driveways. Some of them have lots and a lot of parking. There is tons of parking. The parking that doesn't exist has already been removed by signs that were put up probably without going in front of the Coastal Commission, taking away street parking, which is very common. This, I believe, was due to RVs and motorhomes being parked in this area for years. As homelessness grew, people were finding places in front of parks, not in front of homes. And these streets were all taken away at night to remove the motorhomes. Now, motorhomes are there during the day, and they must leave at night. But now they want those streets back for their own private permits. If you do allow permit parking, they should only be directly in front of these homes, and we should be taking down these street signs that are not legal, in my opinion, in the first place, and they were put up for wrong reasons, and they limit coastal access. This is a problem, coastal access. The Department of Transportation provided you with a report. It said that recreational activity would not be affected. That's crazy. People go there since I was a teenager. This has been Lover's Lane. Fishermen go there. I mean, this is a public right. It does not just involve a few homeowners. And a lot of the outlining areas and people, they didn't know about this. I don't know where this public hearing was posted, but it was a very small attending public input.
Thank you. Mr.
Thank you. My name is John Davis, and the first thing, honorable chair and committee members, first thing I'd like to let you know is the California Coastal Zone is a precious resource, and it is for every Californian, 24 hours, every day of the week, 365 days a year. This smacks of discrimination in that it would preclude certain segments of society from using parking in the coastal zone. With that said, I'd like to get down to the heart of the matter. You have heard emotional appeals. Let's get down to the laws afoot. There is no applicant. A City of Los Angeles council member cannot carry out a project without the approval of the city council. Therefore, the former city council member, Miskowski, is not therefore a legal applicant in that she cannot carry out the project. A homeowner association is not a person able to carry out a project. Therefore, it cannot be an applicant. Only the City of Los Angeles may carry out the specified project upon approval of the full council. Section 15105 of the Public Resources Code, CEQA, entitled Public Review for a Draft EIR or a Proposed Negative Declaration or a Mitigated Negative Declaration. The State Clearinghouse has no record of the proposed intent to adopt a negative declaration, and no clearinghouse schedule number exists attesting to fraud, and no public review process in accordance with CEQA has yet begun. Section 15103, Response to Notice of Preparation. No notice of preparation has been sent within 30 days by the lead agency, the City of Los Angeles, to the Office of Planning and Research, disabling the Office of Planning and Research from the opportunity to provide a response to such NOP. Therefore, further violations of CEQA are apparent in this process. Section 15206, Projects of Statewide, Regional, Area-wide Significance. The project is of statewide and regional and area-wide significance, and that is proposed in the California Coastal Zone, which is regulated by the state and national government. Furthermore, access to public trust lands governed by the State of California Constitution have not been addressed by the State Lands Commission nor the California Coastal Commission, in that the State Clearinghouse has no record and there is no clearinghouse schedule number attached to the proposed adoption of the mitigated negative declaration. Section 15205, no negative declaration to be reviewed by state agencies such as the California Department of Fish and Game has been submitted to the State Clearinghouse. Therefore, there is no State Department Fish and Game letter that has legally arrived for comments in accordance with CEQA. As you may see, there is absolutely no comments from the California Coastal Commission because it's not been circulated to the clearinghouse yet. Completion of the negative declaration, section 15107. The negative declaration, this is very important for the chair to understand. Section 15107 is called completion of a negative declaration. Even if there was a legal applicant, which there is not, the negative declaration was produced on November 7th, 2007. The committee is time-barred by CEQA from taking action beyond 180 days after taking action. The statute of limitation bars action by this council in that it is beyond the 180-day period. You have to start over if you even have a legal applicant in the first place. Also, I'm concerned that the Department of Transportation has conducted illegal surveillance of license plates in the area without any authorization of law, in violation of privacy rights enshrined by the United States Constitution and the Constitution of the State of California and super precedents set by the Supreme Court of the United States of America. This is discriminatory. This is fraudulent. The process has not been adhered to. In fact, it seems that the City of Los Angeles is now engaging in a pattern and practice of following only certain portions of CEQA while ignoring other ones, and also employing processes that are not related to CEQA in the slightest way. And that's how things are playing out. I know that because I'm a successful litigant against the city on Playa Vista Phase 1. I have learned CEQA over 10 years. I am immersed in it. I know even on that project, the city has failed to notify the clearinghouse of the environmental impact report information that is required for the clearinghouse, and those records are now on subpoena. This is related to that in that it's a pattern and practice that the city of Los Angeles has employed. But beyond that, let me give you my last and only emotional appeal. I go down there, I walk my dogs, I surf sometimes at night, I fish at night, I walk the beach. It's the most pleasant environment I've ever been in. It's not scary. I don't have sex, although I'd like to have sex down there. I never have, and I've never got drunk down there. But, the fact is, fishermen...
Did you go to Catholic University?
Pardon me?
Did you go to Catholic University?
But at any rate, I suppose sex is not illegal on the beach in some instances. But beyond that, I have to say, all you have heard is emotional cries. You haven't heard any legitimate arguments under CEQA to support this. Where is the applicant? If you can tell me who the applicant is, the person capable of carrying out the project, I would deeply appreciate that. I would like to know when the application was completed according to staff and who signed off on it. And again, it's time barred, and it's not at the clearinghouse. And fundamentally, if the clearinghouse does not give the city a schedule number, it's impossible to legally notify affected state agencies for comments such as the Coastal Commission and Fish and Game. And lastly, the Fish and Game letter that you do see in there, you will notice does not have a schedule number from the clearinghouse. And I'm now taking that up with the administration of Fish and Game. So therefore, I would advise you to enter this process again and only do so when you're legally entitled to do that. That is upon the application of a coastal development permit. When that happens, the NOI can be circulated to the clearinghouse and comments can be received. Please remove this from the calendar as it is not a legitimate application, and if it was, you would be time barred. Thank you.
I know we have department representation. Department like to come to the front, please. And Mr. Runoff, you'd like to...
It's already there.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. I know Brian Gallagher walked the streets in the middle of the night and did a whole lot of homework on it, and I know, Alan, that you can give us some update as well as both of you. Explain where we are and why we're at where we are.
Okay. This is a request as the...
Name for the record.
Oh, Alan Willis with the Department of Transportation. This is a request that does go back a number of years. It's been a challenging project to try to address all the various issues of beach access and the Coastal Commission regulations and things like that. But the bottom line is that they do have a problem here, as indicated in their video, because the lots are closed at night. The off-street parking lots, both the one next to the Marina Channel, the Bayona Channel, those are county lots, okay? The lots adjacent to the Delray Lagoon are Rec and Parks, City Rec and Parks parking lots. They're all closed, and my understanding is they're closed under the police powers of the city. They were closed because of crime problems in the area at the request of LAPD to deter the criminal activity that was occurring
That might
there.
have been closed, the city parking lots that Rec and Park manage. How long ago were they closed?
I haven't.
I just have a question. Is it a Sunrise to Sunset Park?
It's a 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. if I'm correct. If I understand.
In my mind, it's a Sunrise to Sunset Park.
Well,
It's a
the problem-
Sunrise to Sunset Park, and I remember when Ruth Galanta was here, I believe, just to give you some background there, that it was a Sunrise to Sunset Park within the last 5 to 7 years, if I'm going from my memory. And then there was a great effort by the City of Los Angeles to make sure that we adhere to locking park facilities on time, and Mr. Muckery did an excellent job. Now that's been transferred to general services. That's a little history. Okay.
But it'd be interesting to know whether it is 10 PM or sunrise to
No, it's a
sunset.
sunrise to sunset. We all agree.
There's,
from 10 to 6, because that's when they come around and they tell everybody that they got to go out.
I got it, but the lagoon, I believe, was made a sunrise to sunset park by,
Originally, it was made sunrise.
right, okay, so it is.
Yeah.
so, we should just.
Excuse me, just a second, who's out of order? Okay? No, I'm
No,
asking
sir.
them a question, sir, okay? So you would be out of order if you address us that way. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yeah.
Okay, so trying to address first the issue about the parking restrictions that are causing part of the problem here. So the lots are closed at night, and that takes away a lot of the parking supply in the area. The people that are there have to get out of the lots, and then if they want to stay in the area, have to find alternate places to park.
That's one other question. On the parks in the city are closed, though, at a certain time. I know, for example, in parts of my district, that at 10 o'clock they are closed, and in fact, there's no parking in front of some of those areas as well, across the city.
Correct. As to my knowledge, that is pretty general,
Closed.
yeah, pretty general practice, yes.
They shouldn't be in there after 10 o'clock, because the parks are closed after 10.
That's my understanding of, yes, how Rec and Parks works. It's a different department, but
There's sunrise to sunset parks, there's ordinances on parks. Elysian Park is 9 o'clock, Griffith Park is 10 o'clock, some parks are 10 o'clock, and
Some
some
parks
are
are 10.
sunrise to sunset.
Yes.
So,
As I mean, that there are some that at least, though, all of them are closed by 10 o'clock.
yeah, I mean, there's no 24-hour parks.
Correct.
right, okay.
No, that's not true.
Where? Tell me the 24-hour
I
park.
just closed one, so I know there's others.
No, I know there's no parks that allow you to be there 24 hours. You understand? There's no regulations. There's regulations on every park.
All right, well.
Okay, so I guess the point I was trying...
This park.
Yeah.
The point I was trying to make, that it was an exercise of the city's police powers to control criminal activity, and that addresses the issue of whether or not Coastal Commission approval was obtained. This was a police power action, all right? The other thing is that when we looked at this, what we realized is that, there's roughly, I think, 24 blocks in this area that we're talking about around Delray Lagoon. We got the required request or letter of interest from the homeowners association. We went and we distributed, we gave them copies of these petitions. They met the petition requirement. At least 9 blocks of those 24 had at least 2/3 of the residents signing petitions in favor of establishing this district. We also then went out and did parking surveys where we have to have at least 75% of the legal on-street spaces occupied during the hours that they're talking about restricting it, and also 25% of those vehicles have to be for non-residents. Well, what we found was that over 80% of the parking spaces, 86, 88% of the parking spaces were occupied, and almost 3/4 of those parked vehicles were registered to non-residents. Now, as far as the allegation of illegal surveillance, you park your car on the street, we basically go down and all we do is we record license plates. We do not have access to who owns that car. All we can get from DMV information is the zip code of the registered owner. That's when we say they're non-resident vehicles. We're using the zip codes of the registered owner. So I don't know who that is. I don't know where they live in terms of their street address. I just know they don't live anywhere near that zip code. Okay, so I'm saying 3/4 of those people that we saw there when we did the survey were non-residents. So they well exceeded the standard. We only require, I think, 6 blocks meeting the petition requirements. They had 9. We require 4 blocks to meet the parking survey requirements. They had 8 blocks that met that. So this is a situation where they clearly had demonstrated support for this. They clearly exceeded the city standards for that, and they had a demonstrated problem, a documented problem. And so we proceeded to have a community hearing that was held at the Senior Center in December of 2007. We publicly noticed that, were required to notice that throughout the neighborhood and 300 feet beyond the boundaries of the proposed preferential parking district. We did that posting in accordance with the city council's
What kind
requirements.
of attendance did you have at that meeting?
I don't have the report with
I
me.
was told over 100 people showed
Yeah,
up.
I'm-
Could that
yeah.
have been the case?
That could very well be the case. That wasn't in the report, and I don't have the detailed hearing officer's report with me.
But it was public notice to everyone that could be affected by this with enough lead time.
Right. Let me just see if there is a mention. Actually, no, I've got approximately 52 persons attended the hearing. 52. Okay. So based upon the comments we received there, we proceeded to, we did some follow-up studies looking into some of the issues because there were a number of different hours for the parking restrictions that were requested or suggested at the meeting, whether it started at 10 p.m. and ran to 5 or 6 a.m. when the lots were closed, just to deal with that period, when it went all the way to 8 o'clock in the morning, or do we look at a smaller area that's more, time period like from 2 to 6? So we looked at a variety of things, and we went out and conducted additional parking surveys during those areas. And we also, because of the comment about where are these people going to go, we actually went into the surrounding area during those hours and checked to see how many available parking spaces there were in those areas, and could they accommodate the people that would potentially be forced out of this area. We also looked at, did a survey to look at what about the fishermen that come in early. And what we found there, that a lot of them were going down to Bayona Creek, Bayona Channel area, but they weren't using the county lot, even though the county lot was open when they showed up in the morning, because the county lot charges to park there. So they were choosing to park in the neighborhood for free instead of parking in the county lot, which was open and available.
Charged, do you know?
That I honestly don't know. So we looked at all of these issues, and we said, and we even actually talked to the MTA. They have a bus layover area out on Culver Boulevard, immediately adjacent to the area, which they clearly don't use late at night for bus layover. And we said, could we possibly post that as parking area during the nighttime hours when you're not using it, to increase the on-street parking supply in the immediate area, but outside the proposed preferential parking district. That was a way to mitigate the impact of having permit parking here. We also looked at the fact that the
What did they say to that?
They were fine. The MTA agreed to that.
They agreed to that.
They agreed to that. We also looked at the restrictions on some of the on-street parking adjacent to the lagoon, areas that are currently posted, no parking 10 p.m. to 5 or 6 a.m., and said, well, if those restrictions were put in place to deal with criminal activity associated primarily with non-residents, if not exclusively by non-residents, would it be possible to, if we got the approval for the preferential parking district, could we designate those spaces as permit parking only for residents and their guests, realizing that anybody that's parking there and engaging in any kind of illegal activity would have a permit issued by DOT, and we'd know exactly who's responsible and could take appropriate disciplinary action against them. And that seemed another way to mitigate the impact. In other words, it basically says, let's take spaces that are currently not available to anyone, and instead of taking them away from one group, let's just make them available to the residents. So it was another way of trying to mitigate the overall impacts here. So all of those things considered, we felt that we had a defensible proposal, with all of these elements in it, to move forward to the council with the report that's before you today, recommending approval and establishment of this district. I'm not going to try to answer the questions that have been raised about the CEQA process. I'm not an attorney, all right? We have an attorney here.
I'll address those.
Thank you. And so I just, like, the way I look at it, I will just tell you, we always look at this as this is the first one that we have processed in the coastal zone, a preferential parking district in the coastal zone in the 8 years I've been in charge of this program. We looked at this process as a two-step process. Before you can actually apply to the Coastal Commission for a coastal development permit to do a project that will change the availability of parking available to the public in the coastal zone, you have to have an official action by the legislative body of the jurisdiction that's basically looking to do this district. So we can't go to the Coastal Commission for a coastal development permit without the council saying, we want to do this project. So what we looked at is a two-step process, that what's before you today is, does the council agree that what we put together in terms of all the various elements and aspects of this program is something that we believe, on balance, addresses a lot of the issues and concerns that have been raised here, but provides some relief to the residents, which we tend to try to do under our preferential parking program. And if you do, we can then take that action, and then we would go forward to the Coastal Commission with an application. We would then have a project, which we then apply to them for a coastal development permit. So you would be, the City Council, the applicant to the Coastal Commission.
I see. I want to thank you for what you've done as a thorough strategy. It is the first in 8 years. The coastal zone is the 11th district, everything west of Lincoln Boulevard. And I know that the Coastal Commission will do a vigorous evaluation as well. The issue of the county lots or the rec and park lots and all of that, when did they shut them down? Do you know, from public use?
I honestly don't know. I don't know whether the residents who might have lived there for quite some time, they might know. As far as I can remember, they have been that way.
I've heard at least 10 years just now from the community. But, Mr. Labange, I'm going to do a motion for your committee to just discuss the rec and park parking lots in the city, policies and situations, so we can get a better understanding.
Get an
of all
update
that.
now that we've created the efficiencies of the Office of Public Safety under Mrs. Gruel's leadership, because it transferred from the park ranger system to the office. It's worthy of that. I would welcome that motion.
Very good, very good. That'll give us better clarity in all of these projects going forward. So again, your conclusion is you recommend we can go forward with this, with the work you've done, and then the Coastal Commission will also get involved. Do you want to say something? You want City Attorney?
No, Alan's done a wonderful job explaining this, and I think the only thing I can add is this has been as many of the other projects that we've brought forward to you, that the time it took due to many of the staff shortages we've had, and as council has finally provided the resources for us to go back. So that's the only thing else that I wanted to add, that yes, the time did pass from the time that we did have the hearings and to be able to do this further analysis. But, as Alan mentioned, we've really done our due diligence from our part, and we look forward to the city attorney's advice on this as this moves forward to council.
Yeah, I might say that Brian Gallagher.
He's 100%, well, 100% credit to him.
I am totally grateful for his leadership, his time, his energy, and everything he's been doing for CD11
Dedicated
on this
public
issue.
employee.
He's really a great public employee. And
Just remember, I've told you, you cannot steal him to take him more away from the San Fernando Valley.
We love him
We've used him.
in our district for the fact that he came to me, and after I had a community meeting, and the community was very clear where they were coming from. He went around the clock, like Peggy Lee just did herself, and spent 24/7 figuring it out and doing a very good due diligence job. So hats off again to him.
Right, I wouldn't have the project before you today without him.
City Attorney, you're up.
There were a couple legal issues that have been raised in connection with the processing of this request for a preferential parking district, and I'd like to take a motion to address those. One was the amount of time that the opposition should be allowed to speak today, and whether this is should be considered as a land use decision by the City Council. I thought, out of an abundance of caution and perhaps to deny any of those who might want to challenge the council's approval of such a preferential parking district, that we should allow equal time, and the chair has done that in this case. There have been two issues related to CEQA. One had to do with the 180 days for completion of a negative declaration under state guidelines section 15107. However, that section relates to private projects. The approval of a preferential parking district here does not constitute a private project within that section, so I don't see it to be relevant here. The other issue that was raised was the failure of the city to file a notice with the state clearinghouse that we were performing a negative declaration. I would point out that notice of intent to adopt a negative declaration was filed last November 7th with the county register recorder, and that was posted from November 13th to December 13th for a full 30 days. The only reason for giving such a notice to the state clearinghouse is so that other parties that may choose to object to the city's decision to be the lead agency under CEQA might object. And CEQA does favor general purpose agencies as lead agencies over special purpose agencies. As Mr. Willis has said, the city has to complete its process before this even goes to the Coastal Commission, and as one of the objectors to this process has told you, State Fish and Game has already submitted comments, and in their comments they said that they did not see any adverse impact to the state's resources through the adoption of this process, and I am not aware that there is any case law that invalidates a CEQA determination by an agency based on the failure to file with the state clearinghouse. But I would recommend that the Department of Transportation file a notice at this time so that they can get a number going forward.
There was also the question of the applicant,
What was the question of the
the
applicant?
legality of the applicant.
Oh, you mean
The city
you mean the fact that Cindy Misikowski isn't on the city council anymore?
I think that's what it was.
Well, yes, I did hear that. My understanding that
City council members could not
But it-
file as applicants?
Yeah, but there's, I think in here, there's actual letters from the community and the homeowners association actually requesting it. And then
Right.
Cindy forwarded it to them based on
I
the
just want to
letters.
get the city attorney, I want to be clear.
Yeah, so the
I thought we can be applicants for many projects. I don't know.
I believe that the rules that the Department of Transportation has set up for the creation of these preferential parking districts is that the applicants have to be residents who live within the proposed district area, and I believe we have that in this case.
So, but can a council member represent for them? Were there other applicants besides the council member? Is that what you're
I
saying?
believe that there were, and there were quite a few.
Laguna Del Mar.
If I may, yes, the Councilmember Misikowski actually asked us to investigate the possibility of, or the feasibility of creating a preferential parking district here. A couple years later, the homeowners association came and they actually filled out the required letter of interest, provided all the necessary information in order to make it an official request.
I do have a couple of questions. Has a preferential parking district such as this ever been approved by the Coastal Commission?
Yes, they have approved preferential parking districts in Santa Monica in the coastal zone, and also, I think, in Redondo Beach in the coastal zone. We have never had one approved in the city of Los Angeles that I'm aware of.
And I take it you reviewed the processes that were used by the city of Santa Monica?
Yes, we did.
And
what they did there, the reason that they were able to be successful, the gist of it from reading all of the transcripts, was that they went out and they surveyed on-street metered parking availability, and also they looked in the neighborhood that was proposed for preferential parking, and they counted up like basically how many non-resident vehicles they had. And once they had that number, they could show that they had, at the time the restrictions were supposed to be in effect, they had enough vacant metered spaces to accommodate all of the non-resident vehicles being forced out of the neighborhood. Basically, once again, just like the county fishermen here, people were parking in the neighborhood for free to avoid parking at the meter and having to pay or abide by the time limits.
okay, so then by approving this action, we're essentially approving the Department of Transportation's application to CEQA, to the Coastal Commission.
Well, one of the, by approving this, I think one of the actions and recommendations in the report is, I think you have us go forward and apply for and obtain a coastal development permit.
So we cannot implement the preferential parking until the Coastal Commission gives us a permit.
Right, that's correct.
Okay, so the real question as to the legality of this application would be addressed at the Coastal Commission level.
That's my understanding.
As part of the permit process.
The Coastal Commission has their own rules that they're going to follow, but in terms of the question that you asked about who can apply, that was, the answer to that is internal to the City of Los Angeles.
I'm not so concerned with that issue. What I am concerned with is that the formal decision to allow preferential parking would essentially be the Coastal Commission's, and therefore they would adhere to laws that are under their authority.
Yes.
So any questions that have been raised by Mr. Davis, for example, would be addressed at the Coastal Commission level, except for the application issue.
I expect that at least some of those same issues will be raised there. The Coastal Commission may determine that it is a responsible agency under CEQA and that the city is the lead agency, and that might preclude some questions regarding the negative declaration that would be adopted by the city.
And that was, actually, that moves to my final question, and that has to do with what essentially are the findings that we as council members have to make in order to grant a preferential parking? What problem do we have to be fixing?
Well, I think...
And I think that's probably a DOT answer, as far as what the criteria is, as you indicated,
Right.
25%.
Right. And this goes back to basically the case law that was established around preferential parking when it was established in the state of California. What you have to have is we require a demonstration of sufficient support for this kind of restrictions, and that's the petition process that we use. The other thing is the documented parking problem, and that's where I mentioned that we have to find a certain number, a minimum number of blocks that have over 75% of the spaces.
Now, let me ask you about that issue. The public thoroughfare is not just for the residents, it's for anybody. So why does that matter?
The state, all I can say is that like approximately 30 years ago, the state legislature decided that residential neighborhoods needed protection from parking intrusion by non-resident vehicles that were taking up the parking.
But I thought that there was supposed to be another negative effect of the parking, not just the fact that there's a proportion of people, but that there's other cause.
Well, it's a shortage of parking supply, but there are also other negative aspects. The video showed some of them in terms of...
But I was asking about the findings, and you were talking about the second one, relative to the proportion of residents versus non-residents. But I think the proportion of residents and non-residents in and of itself, in my mind, is not enough to grant this request. There have to be some other findings that I thought we had to make that had to do with health and safety. Are those in the requirements?
No, not for this particular program.
Are there any other criteria besides the two you mentioned?
No. I mean, other than the fact that they have to make a formal request to the city through this letter of interest, provide information that shows who they represent, how many people they represent, and that they're requesting this. But the petitions is one requirement that they absolutely have to meet. If they don't, the request is denied and does not go any further. If they don't meet the criteria of the parking survey, the request is denied and the request goes no further. If they make it past that, we still go to community hearing, and on the basis of that, the testimony of that hearing, DOT will make a recommendation either to modify the request or to deny or approve the request. And that's what's before you today.
I think what he's saying is it's legal.
Yeah.
What we're doing.
I know it's legal, but I also have a conscience, and I want to make sure that I'm making a decision for the right reasons. So I want to make it clear, because if these things come back, I want everybody not to be surprised if I vote against them. When we take the public thoroughfare away from the public for any period of time, I think we have to state why. In this particular case, you're saying the findings only simply require a proportion of the population, and I don't think that's a good enough measure. So, Bill, I'm not persuaded by the requirements. The fact that we may be legal here doesn't persuade me to vote yes. The video and the concerns about public safety, those are more compelling to me than the others. And I believe that the intent of the legislature when providing for the first provision that it be demanded by a certain proportion of the population, assume that it's because of problems. All I'm saying is that I think as the City of Los Angeles, that we should make it our practice to declare what those problems are, beyond whatever the state rules are. And so I'm going to support this because of the problems that I'm convinced the community is experiencing, not because of the proportion of the population. If we have another one of these requests that doesn't demonstrate any particular problem, but just because some highfalutin community wants to block people from coming into their neighborhood, I'm not going to support it.
I totally agree with you, Richard. I mean, there is community issues that are significant to the community that were presented in my office and to me that need to be addressed. And that's why I will do a motion, I'd love your second on it, to go before Rec and Park to understand how we close parking lots and why we close parking lots, why we do what we do, and what the police have to say about those issues.
Just be a little more clear about what we have to, for example, we have to make a finding that there's a danger to health and safety
and each community is different. There are different issues. There are different issues if that you can't access your, I mean, there's been both. I mean, I think depending upon the community. I've had some that have been related to health and safety. We've had others that have been related to people can't get into their own neighborhood to be able to park, and so it's been a little bit of both.
Actually, I'm protecting us from future votes, because if that's the simple requirement and everybody knows it, we could get all kinds of requests and not make it clear that we're voting because of the problem, not because this proportion of the community wants to block.
No, I think you got a good point there, but just look at the agendas on consent all the time about folks continuing their year temporary throughout the whole city, which is something we need to visit really as well. But I'd like a motion to just move forward with this and take it to council.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Bond, you're okay with that? Okay.
I just want to ask Alan one quick question.
Okay. Well, the vote for this item will be 4-0.
Good.
Think you want to ask a quick question?
First preferential parking district was Melrose Avenue. How long have you been with the city, Alan?
21 years, and I still don't have the answer.
Mr. Fisher knows everything. You're 21 years. I got 34 years. I think it was Melrose Avenue. All right, because of the activity on there. Thank you. What did you say?
So we're going to go item number 6. Thank you very much.
Time's out of order. Okay.
What did you want to do on item number 3? Did you want us to move that forward and then just have a discussion between now and then?
Yeah.
Okay. I think on.
When will we put it on the council?
I got it back.
When can we
Sharon.
schedule this?
This item will be scheduled for next Wednesday, and that would be July 30th.
July 30th before the city council. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Item number 6.
Item number 6 is a DOT report relative to the status of the proposed car-sharing pilot program in Los Angeles.
Hello, Alan Willis from Department of Transportation. What you have before you is a status report and basically, confirmation or reaffirmation going forward with the car sharing program pilot that you already authorized DOT to undertake. The reason for this is that basically we felt that we owed you a status report because of the passage of time. We had proposed an original schedule for implementing the car-sharing pilot, and we're well past that schedule. And basically, the reasons for that was that when we submitted the, or circulated solicitation for letters of interest to conduct a one-year car-sharing pilot in LA, we got no positive responses, no proposals in response to that. Most of that was due to the fact that the two major private car-sharing companies at the time, FlexCar and Zipcar, the day that the council authorizes to solicit participation, announced their merger. And apparently they were quite involved in consolidating their businesses during the response period and were not able to respond at that time. The other companies that we solicited were pretty much single city operations, and one did comment to us, and that was City Car Share in San Francisco, that they were not interested in going to other cities. We're going to concentrate on expanding their customer base in San Francisco. So we later in the spring, were contacted by Zipcar and were notified that they had now completed their consolidation. They were interested in proposing. So what we did was we actually recirculated the solicitation to them and to some other companies that were listed on a website as being major or intermediate car sharing companies. We still got only one, and this time we only got only one response, and it was from Zipcar. And at the time that they submitted their response, they said they were interested in going into 4 areas: Hollywood, downtown, UCLA campus area, and USC campus area, with somewhere between 5 and 20 vehicles in each area. We scheduled a meeting with one of the general managers to discuss the details of the different areas, and when we met with her, what she basically said was that at this time, we'd like to focus on our campus operations primarily. So we're only interested in doing a one-shift pilot in LA in the area around the UCLA campus and in the area around the USC campus. And we're not interested at this moment in time in doing a Hollywood or a downtown pilot. The key thing we wanted to explain to you is that, we are ready to go forward with this because we know that that was the direction of the council. We wanted to make sure that since this originated with a motion from Councilmember Garcetti for a pilot program in Hollywood, that everybody was clear on we're not getting that. And that if we go forward, we don't have more than one operator, we only have one operator and only 2 areas. And so that's basically what we're here for today, is to get that reaffirmation that we still want to pursue that as a demonstration in LA. One other thing I would like to say is that in talking or communicating with the city car share general manager, he indicated that there are certain regulatory environments, San Francisco has one, where it is possible for a single city car share sort of entrepreneurial operation to compete with a national or international firm like Flexcar or Zipcar, and was willing to discuss with us what's the nature of the regulatory environment that makes that kind of coexistence possible. Because that may be another model for LA, that with our size and our various neighborhoods, that maybe a locally based company just serving Los Angeles would be a perfect fill-in or supplement or overlay to, locations served just by an international firm like Zipcar.
Well, and I think, number one, we were hopeful at the time that we could have these other 2 locations, but I think we want to move very quickly on, at least on UCLA and USC, those 2 locations. And we've spoken to Mr. Garcetti's office and fine with that as well, knowing that they can't go into Hollywood at this time. But I think we should look at ways in which we can help locally based companies potentially do this in our area. I think with the resurgence of both in Hollywood and downtown, people trying to walk to work and do other things, having this kind of access would be very helpful if they do have to do those, go somewhere where they have to pick something up and cannot do it by walking to a location or getting somewhere else. So I think we're very excited about that and hope that you will come back as to some incentives or ways in which we can encourage a locally based company or potentially even convince Zipcar to do it in those other 2 locations, but that we did not want to lose the time on getting this implemented, in the fall of this year by the time school starts. And so I think we spoke earlier about having parallel paths of having the ordinance hopefully drafted by the city attorney's office as quickly as possible, and at the same time getting ready for implementation so that we can quickly move on those. And I know the city attorney's office said they would do what they could similarly as well.
And I have some assistance now on that ordinance preparation, so I'm much happier and looking a lot more optimistically on getting that done rapidly. Okay. Yes.
Okay, because we definitely wanted to see that happen.
Yeah, I do have, or I just was handed before I came up here, I have an email from Professor Donald Shoup at UCLA, very strongly in support of this, saying that UCLA graduate students would gladly help collect data on the performance of the program. Right. I also have a letter from Ms. Jenny Barrio, who is the general manager for the university program at Zipcar, who was unable to be here today, but she does have something, and I can submit it to the city clerk for distribution on the record.
Okay, great. No, Dr. Shoup's been a big supporter of these kinds of projects, and I think it's really exciting, and looking at how we will do bicycles at some locations, and we've been talking now, Mr. LeBon just talking about that as well, and making sure that we have a seamless system so that once you arrive at your destination or have to leave your destination, that if you need to get there in another form of transportation, it's available to you. Mr. Rosendahl?
Yeah, we think it's great. You know, it's almost like the other day when we did the taxis, you know, setting up a couple of zones and trying to work that out. We're thinking out of the box, which is another good thing we need to do. After the pilot program is complete, what are the prospects of expanding this service into other communities such as Hollywood, downtown, and Venice?
I really, truly believe that this is a program that's going to catch fire in L.A. I mean, I really am a believer. Just, you know, I started with no background in this, did a lot of research, reading up about it, and I mean, there are so many potential uses for this program. I mean, what amazed me was some cities, believe it or not, have actually contracted with car sharing companies, and what they do is they use them to supplement their pool cars. Right. So they rent these car sharing vehicles during the day for city staff to drive around in, and at night they park them in a public lot that's accessible to the public. So think about that in downtown, the fleet of city vehicles we have downtown. What if at night they were available to all the downtown residents who went into these adaptive reuse buildings with no parking lots, and they had all these cars available to them to use at night and go wherever they wanted. It's just incredible program.
It's a no-brainer. Would we be able to install bicycle racks near the car-sharing vehicles to enable, obviously, users to ride their bikes, to pick up their cars and go back and forth that way? Can we experiment with these two pilots to maybe put some bike racks there, too?
I don't see any reason why we couldn't do something like that. We do have a bike rack program, and so that might be something we can partner with them on installing the bike racks at these locations. They tend to put them right now in front of commercial locations, but what they're asking for here is basically going out into the residential community, and primarily west of UCLA campus and north and west of the USC campus. So now we're into a different environment, but as long as I guess the space is there, something like that could be done.
Because maybe we can do it. And the same thing with my next question, which is even taking us another step further. You know, if the planning department and developers, let's say they got together, which we always think they should, and transportation get together with development too, to encourage car-sharing vehicles to serve new multifamily developments. You hear the story half the time about, well, we want to do it with density, but we don't have enough parking spots, and we don't have this, we don't have that. But if at that stage of an idea to become something, that there could be this concept embedded in both planning, in the developer's mind, and transportation. Do you think that might be an adaptable extrapolating out of this experiment?
It's all. I mean, that's why I wanted to give you what the general manager from Zipcar. She actually has cited a study that had found that for every car-sharing vehicle out there, 15 vehicles are removed from the road. Right. If that isn't a mitigation benefit to a development project, I don't know what is.
I would encourage us. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, one of the things I was going to add, which was to ask our city planning and DOT to come back with incentives, look at other regulatory models in other cities, but incentives specifically for use of car sharing as a mitigation measure.
Exactly, and I think you should be joined at the hip with them on this and get them engaged in that. And it even goes a step further, since I see my great Metro man in the room over there. You know, in other cities,
Art Henry,
a car sharing is a partner with mass transit agencies, and it acts as an extension of the rail network. You know, how can we work with Metro, maybe Art can come up and tell us, to locate car-sharing vehicles at or near train stations to enhance the regional transit network? How can we ensue that new and proposed station designs include spaces for car-sharing vehicles? What about that, MTA? As we go forward with, you know, the Expo line to the beach, the subway to the sea, the green line into the airport, putting that as part of our plan.
If I might inject, that's actually another very prevalent use of car-sharing vehicles. That, you know how you have like Metrolink commuters that will leave a second car at the parking lot at their destination and use that to get to work? Well, car sharing has gone into a number of rail stations. They have their vehicles based at the rail stations. The people coming in the morning take the vehicle and take it to their office. When they bring it back at night, it's available for the people in the neighborhood neighborhood to use during the night.
Right.
And then they'd return it by the next morning, and then that person comes back. And so there's that shared use all day long.
Maybe the great Rita Robinson can talk to the great Roger Snowball, and we can get that conversation going between MTA and us, because if we can multiply this out quicker than just two little areas in our city, it would be of great service to everybody.
Be fabulous.
And Rita's nodding her head, so we look
Yes.
forward to that.
All right, so we will adopt this with the recommendations on some follow-up on incentives, both with planning department and others, because we'd like to see this happen and look at some of those regulatory models. Okay, with that item without dissent, we'll go with that item. Yes. Yes. Next item, Maria? I think is item number.
Thank you.
Number 3 we could do. We could do
Oh, I'm sorry, he wants to do number 3.
Want to go back to number 3?
Go forward.
Like your enthusiasm.
Okay, we'll move forward on item number 3.
Okay, so approving item number 3?
Yes.
Okay. That brings us to item number 9, which is a Gruel-Garcetti motion relative to replacing the Interstate 210 congestion pricing demonstration project with Interstate 110.
And I may just jump in first before, because I know we have, some people have time challenges here. So colleagues, this is an item that actually, between the time we introduced the motion and today, the U.S. Department of Transportation has actually approved the movement from it being the 210 and 10 to the 110 freeway for this location, and made sure that carpoolers can actually also utilize that it wouldn't disincentivize carpooling in those locations for the hot lanes. If you could maybe just give us a quick overview. I know the MTA tomorrow will be considering this as well, and the state legislature has to take action. But this is, and I know the mayor's office and the mayor was very instrumental in making sure this happened with US DOT to get this approval to have the 210 be the top priority.
Good afternoon, thank you.
Excuse me, the 110. I said 210, 110.
Jay Kim from DOT. Actually, this is a great opportunity for us with the money moving over from the 210 to the 110. As you recall, back in December, DOT did a report, and we did recommend 5 city complementary projects that would sort of go in tandem with the joint US DOT application. Basically, the 5 projects included the Downtown Dash Enhancement Project, and also the Parking Intelligence Enhancement Project, as well as the Commuter GPS Project, and the changeable measure sign project on Broadway and Figueroa, right? It was a total of $35 million, and we're getting approximately, roughly at this juncture, Metro staff is looking at recommending initially 2 out of the 5, totaling $16 million. 15 would go towards the parking enhancement project for the downtown, and another $1 million for a transit enhancement off the corridor. It's a bus route enhancement, and so it's 16 out of 35. So I guess at this juncture, what's on the table would be for the remaining 3 projects which have not made the cut. Is that something that we would like to pursue further, or do we sort of leave it alone? I mean, it is extra money that we didn't anticipate initially. However, there is a funding limitation in that the application, when it was applied for, was a $600 million application, and I think the amount at this point for the 2 corridors would be only limited to $213 million. So given that funding limitation, I think, again, MTA can't recommend everything that all the other jurisdictions have recommended, and so they're looking at initially these 2 projects. And so that's sort of a question, I guess, for the mayor's office and the council, as do we pursue the remaining 3, and is there room for some additional funding to be carved out of maybe some other projects and fund the rest of the city projects?
And I think for me, and I'm sure the rest of the council, the importance of trying to get all 5 of those projects funded, and to, again, since if the 110 is primarily the major project, that there's greater impact around this community. And so I think that we want to continue to advocate and see Borja here, in the mayor's office, again, I feel the same way. We want to try to get as much as we can for these projects around that 110. So I think we can adopt this motion with a addition that says we encourage the MTA and Caltrans to ensure that more of the funding goes to more than just the $16 million you mentioned.
Yeah, and there's one other, I think Mr. Lavange brought up this issue, which was if you are having paid customers and you're taking them on a faster route and they end up sort of bunching up, getting to the choke point, which currently occurs at Adams, where it terminates, and that's a legitimate question, and it's a major problem potentially because you're providing the service, and yet you may actually cause some harm at the end. You're just going to get them to this point of congestion.
And I think that's why we would want to advocate for one of the options, which was to help in that exiting in those locations.
And there are some strategies that are being looked at, and also I believe they're also recommending setting aside $3 million to do a project study report with Caltrans to look at some short-term solutions as well as long-term potential improvements.
Mr. Lavange.
No, Jay is a very bright and great engineer. The fact that you remembered that it's the end of the stub at the 110, and when I was on the MTA board, when I've been on council, I asked, let's think about what we do. How do we bring it down? How do we connect it? You're thinking about it. That's good. Thank you.
Yeah, I have a couple of 3 questions. Hi, Jay. Have we looked at the 10 freeway for a demonstration project at all?
The 10? Oh, yeah, the 10 was included, actually. There were 3 freeway corridors.
But not in the city of LA.
It was nothing in the city of LA. It was the 210 corridor and the 10 in the San Gabriel Valley.
Yeah, right.
So the only one that pertains to the city at this point is the 110.
Okay, second question.
Corridor.
What is the latest update from Metro staff on their congested pricing task force? Do we have any understanding of what Metro has done with that?
My understanding is that they hired somebody and they're looking into the issue. I don't know the latest developments. I'd have to probably get back to you.
Would you get back to us and ask them if they have something to share with us? We'd like to be in the loop early on. My third question, what is the status of congestion pricing program or study that I've been talking about for the LAX area?
Oh, for that one. Last time we did report back, and I think in that report you did ask us what would be sort of the potential possibility of implementing such a system, and I think our response basically centered around the fact that it is a very unique location, and we didn't come out and say that it was impossible or possible, but our main attempt at that juncture was to indicate the unique challenges of the area, and I think we pointed out a number of technical reasons why it would be a challenge. But again, I don't think it was to necessarily say that they could not be overcome, but there were some legitimate issues, the physical layout, the type of people that are coming to the airport, and the fact that it would be a huge educational campaign, and to really have people sign on to an automated system would be kind of difficult, because unlike a toll road where you have regular users that are using that facility and they see it every day and they decide to go ahead and sign up, you're asking travelers that are coming from far-flung areas or not immediately from the area, and they do not maybe come to the airport very often. And if you don't have an automated system where people are signing up, like the fast track system, and if you were to have manual toll booths, it would be very time consuming. It would actually cause a lot of congestion. So those are some of the concerns that I think we laid out in the report.
We'd like you to do in a year from now,
okay,
God willing, we're all around. I'd like a report back because as the modernization projects continue, and assuming the voters will go for the half-a-cent sales tax, and assuming the Green Line, which is now in a quick time frame, starts happening, and we start creating mass transit options for people, that's the only time we wanted to implement this congested pricing, is when you didn't have to take your car, but if you did, it's an extra luxury.
Yes, that was another, yeah.
You would pay an extra premium for that. I'm not for charging people who can't take public transportation, or if we don't have that opportunity there. So as we go forward with our modernization, go forward with some of our transportation infrastructure decisions and visions happening, we'd like a report back. I don't want to give up on LAX as a potential congestion pricing strategy as time goes on.
And you're absolutely correct. And I think the technology is also changing, so some of the concerns that we had laid out, those may be overcome with additional new technology, so we'll keep that in mind.
Okay, so in a month, in a year, can I get a report back?
Sure, in a year.
Thanks.
Thank you. And I think, didn't we talk about, Mr. Rosendahl, that in the modernization of LAX, that part of that, when they have some of the people move and other things, that's a good time as well. It's part of the timing.
Indeed,
Exactly.
all part of that modernization strategy. That's why
Mr.
a year to
City
year.
Attorney, I'm against congested pricing. I don't believe it philosophically. But I could vote for this and not, and help move this along, correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, that'll be 3-0 on that item. Thank you. Thank you very much, Jay.
Thank you.
Next item is item number 10. We do have one public comment card on that. Mr. Sachs?
Item 10 is a Grove Parks motion relative to the preparation of a list of the city's priority transportation projects and programs for the Safe, Accountable, Flexible, Efficient Transportation Equality Act.
Auf Deutsch? Ist das Deutsch? Yeah. That's when I got sworn in.
Good afternoon. Very quickly, according to the background information, just out of curiosity, there's a total of 67 projects that were funded based on the funds that you got in the first go-around with this. So I was just curious how many of those projects have been finished and what the status of them. Is new money going to be going into those projects again? As is the case, this always seems to be with MTA, that the projects start and never get completed. And I think that pretty much covers it.
Okay.
But I
just,
did want to.
we did, and we can look, see, Mr. Sachs, that we've asked periodically for updates on where they are on those projects, particularly because if we compete for additional new projects, we'd be looked at whether or not we completed those previously and timely, so we can get to you what the most latest update is.
Thank you.
Thank you. Colleagues, on this item, what we want to do is, this I think goes to the Rules and Government Committee as well, but what we'd like to do is set up a task force between DOT, City Planning, Bureau of State Services, to begin part of this preparation.
I think that's a great idea, but I also want to ask a few questions.
Yes, so that would be my recommendation, and for them to return in that 45 days. The importance of this is to ensure so that when we get down to the day we have to make recommendations, that we have a task force that's looked at priorities, when those are competitive, et cetera, trying to plan ahead.
That's
I know you've
perfectly
supported
right.
that in the past.
I totally have. Can we ask DOT and EED to come up? Is the ED in the room? Yes, great. We're going to move quickly because we all have other roles.
Madam Chair, this item was only referred to Transportation Committee.
Oh, it was? Okay, great.
No, I believe we should send it to Rules so we can get a resolution and an official position on that, and then we'll go to council.
Okay.
With you guys here, does the federal, we're looking for federal funding on everything. Our officials in D.C. don't bring home enough of the bacon for the people here, and we have to find ways to bring that bacon back, okay? And the question is for you folks, does the federal funding cover costs for mitigating urban runoff pollution?
Yes, we funded some projects, I think, with federal funds for that. If the urban runoff is a result of transportation, if it's earmark money, it could be used for almost anything. I mean, earmark money can be used on private property.
Because the point is, can we make sure that our priority projects, when we develop the list and put the task force together, include stormwater management elements, which I know the feds are very excited about when you put those elements in your project. Now, I know DOT historically doesn't do that, but EAD does, right?
Right. Melinda Bartlett with the Environmental Affairs Department.
Tell us about that and what I just...
Well, we have received money through the feds to do the first storm drain stenciling project that we did across the city.
Right.
And our department has received a couple of their grants for doing tree planting and opening up the sidewalks again to mitigate. But it would also be our hope that as we look at all of our earmark projects or our projects, that we do everything we can to look at that environmental footprint and see if we can fund them in a more holistic fashion mitigating the urban runoff as well as any other, trees shading the areas.
Yeah, I knew you were great without even meeting you, because that tie-in, as Rita knows in the back, helps get things going if they see the environmental aspect, the stormwater runoff aspect, tied to whatever we do in transportation. So if we can go forward with every project we end up putting on these lists to include stormwater management elements, that you are joined at the hip with DOT as they develop these things, and wherever you can green it, to use our phrase, the greenest city in the world here, the more it might be appealing to DC, so we can get more of that federal support. Does that make sense from your perspective?
Yes.
We'll add them to the task force as part of
Yes.
that.
Oh, part of the task force. Yes, part of the task force and part of the follow-through. And I want to see your fingerprints all over that kind of stuff, because if it resonates back there, and we're going to have a new president, be it Barack or be it John, it's hard to say John. Barack and John, or McCain and Obama. But whoever wins that, their environmental people are going to be all over the climate change issue and everything to do with stormwater, everything to do with the future. So as much as we can package the two together, the more compelling it'll be.
May I ask a question? When we reported on the earmark projects, we reported both on projects that the city received, and the city received about $22 million for about 24, 25 projects. But we also reported on projects that are within the city of Los Angeles that other agencies receive. Right. Do you want this task force to look at projects that other agencies would implement that the city of LA might want to support? For example, one of the big projects that got money from the feds in Safety Lou was the East Side Light Rail line. Yeah. And we may want to decide which of these major regional projects we want to support.
And I think we'll take your recommendations. My gut is, yes, we would want to see both, and that we'd want to see those that we are directly responsible for, and those that would support the system we're creating within the city of Los Angeles, so that we can go forward.
Great.
That'd be great. Thank you very much. And I know, as I think mentioned to you yesterday, the importance that Mr. Parks wanted to make sure that some of the issues that have been addressed, at least initially with the South, and I don't see her here, South LA Master Plan, where we can connect with that as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. That'll be the order. Item number 11.
Item number 11 is a Greer-Rosendahl motion relative to the city's process for the collection and expenditure of transportation mitigation funds collected from new developments.
And colleagues, sorry, Jay, I don't mean to preempt you at each time, but on this one, this was a motion that we introduced. The concern was twofold. One was ensuring that we utilize the funds in an expeditious manner for those that have been given, and quite an example this morning, Mr. Rosendahl, with the money used for the synchronization, but is to ensure that we have our own kind of benchmarking that the funds, number one, are spent within the period of time so we don't lose them, and how to deal with the fact when there may not be consensus from some of the groups to not lose those dollars and flexibility. Yeah. And so what we want to do is ask the department to come back and provide recommendations. We had a unique problem in the Studio City, the Ventura Boulevard specific plan, and funds being saved to do larger projects, but ultimately it being problematic in that way, so that we have a lot of transparency and know how much we have in those funds, right, and where we want to go and spend them before they're returned.
You know, it's so critical, Ms. Gould, that you brought this leadership in on this, and I was enthused to second it for the obvious reasons that somebody has to keep a tab on all this and hold everything accountable. I sometimes have suspicions that the follow-through hasn't happened, yeah, and therefore the revenues haven't come in and obviously haven't been spent properly. So it's a bigger issue than anything around, and it's great. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm sorry, if you have anything else to add.
Jacob again, DOT. To increase that transparency, we actually have been working on this issue for the last year or so. One of the biggest issues was just keeping up with all the counting work. And that's been a challenge because, as you can imagine, it's all paper-based. And when when we have vacancies in other priorities and things fall back, that's been an issue. And also, we had a controller audit that talked about that in certain instances, the deposits were not being made on a timely manner. And also this issue of once you collect the money, you have this sort of 5-year rule that says that you have to at least within that time period make an allocation and identify projects. And so I think to that end, what we wanted to do was kind of remove this paper-based system that relies on, staff issues and make it more automated. So now we actually developed a electronic tracking system, and so when monies come in, when a deposit is made, it gets time-stamped in our system, and when it goes to accounting, our DOT accounting, and they take it and register it, it takes another timestamp. And when it makes it to the Treasury, City Treasury, and comes back and it gets into the FMIS system, again, all those dates are entered into the system, and the whole idea would be to generate and realize what the real-time balance of the trust fund is at any given moment in time. And it also helps us, because of the time stamping, we know when the money potentially could be up for that 5-year rule. And so that would really help us sort of track the different colors of money, and that was a huge issue for us before. And I think the other issue that you had brought up was the building consensus issue. How do we sort of go about making sure that we start to work with communities, with the council offices, and put in projects in place so that there's kind of a methodical march towards making use of those monies in an expeditious manner. And so, again, we have plans in place to do exactly those kinds of things, to do the outreach. And so I think the good news is that we've done the first part of the work, which is to do the counting and be much more transparent in that regard.
Great. Well, we're looking forward to that, and I think it will help us and allow us potentially get more projects out there.
Yes.
So with that, I think we'll approve the motion that's before us. Thank you. Thanks, Jay, for your hard work.
Thank you.
So we have the following individuals who submitted cards.
Madam Chair, can we just wait just a moment to change the tape to record the public comment?
Okay, while we're doing that, I'm just going to ask them to come up.
Okay, no problem.
Okay? So this is on public comment, so Jay, you can go, and I'm going to call up the following 4 individuals. Arnold Sachs, John Davis, Ann Bradley, and Peggy Lee Kennedy. If you'd all please come on up.
Is that 2 minutes each?
Yes, okay.
Madam Chair, I have to leave, but Ms. Bradley has an issue in my district, so if you could ask her to go first.
Sure.
Thank you
Sure,
so
Mr.
much.
Sachs will allow her to do that.
Certainly, sir.
Gentlemen.
Want to let you know that I will be at the meeting tomorrow at the Ranger Station. The council has an incredible opportunity to do something magnificent this coming holiday season, and that's make the Festival of Lights car-free. Before you say no, please hear me out. The fact of the matter is Sunset, Vermont is probably the most public transit-supported intersection in the city. People can get off the red line, they can take the rapid north-south, they can do all kinds of things, and wonderful Miss Robinson can merge with MTA and send shuttles to the Festival of Lights. Now think about it for a minute. When you're trying to get off at Los Feliz, you sit there an hour, and that is not hyperbole. You know it, Tom. The fact of the matter is people wait over an hour as they're going through, and they're idling. Now, the problem may be solved because, frankly, in November, we may be paying $10 a gallon. I'm not paying it because I'm car-free. But I beg you, this is not just a statement. My statement. This is not just sending a message. People from poor communities are under the impression you need a car to see the Festival of Lights. That's just not true. People don't take their cars to go to the Hollywood Bowl. If you make this festival car-free, you can have an opportunity where people get on the red line, the gold line, the green line, the blue line. They talk about it. They go with their families. Maybe you have to charge a little bit more on that dash to have the shuttles. But I bet Ms. Robinson can work with Mr. Snowball, and you make that Festival of Lights car-free, and you will find that it will be a much more engaging opportunity for everybody that attends. I beg you, don't say no yet. Just consider it a car-free Festival of Lights. Thank you very much.
Thank you
Madam
very
Chair,
much.
members, it is going to be car-free for the first 2 weeks, and there will be shuttles for that, so we are making progress. Thank you.
Look forward to taking it. Thank you, Ms. Bradley. Mr. Sachs.
Yes, also, Madam Chair, I wanted to speak on item 7. I know it was continued, but I did want
I-7
to,
was continued.
I did want to make a quick comment on that item.
Yes.
Can I do that and then speak on this?
Well, it'll be heard in 2 weeks. We don't have the item now
Okay.
before us.
Very quickly then, tomorrow marks MTA Board Meeting. the third chairman of the MTA within the last couple of years, within the time frame that the bus-only rapid lane was proposed for Wilshire Boulevard. We're still waiting for an EIR report on that. What's the status on the EIR report? It is the third chairperson will be heading the MTA board since the inception of that time.
For you real quickly?
I mean, they're in the process of, yeah.
You know, the EIR by both the county and the city, each group forked up 200 grand, it says 400 grand. They're doing the EIR right now. We have federal funds standing by to be plugged into the project once that project is complete. It is happening.
I understand. I'm just looking for a completion date, more or less.
We'll
Because
check and see.
The airport has requested an EIR on the northern runways, and they've asked for it to be expedited. So I'm just saying that there's certain things that can be done. It's a third chairperson. That's all. Time frame. There was a previous meeting, I don't remember exactly when, that involved a joint project for maglev. The company proposing it from Atlanta was offering to build it for free. What's the status on the joint project there, and what's the status on the maglev? With all the transportation issues we have, somebody offering to build something, a rail line in LA for free, should be investigated, especially since you're looking to put a 1.5 cent sales tax measure on the ballot. It's a free rail line. I don't know exactly all the pertinent information, but from what I understood, between SCAG and...
There's a joint powers, I mean, we can
Right.
give you a number in the
But
SCAG to know the latest on
Looking for
that.
an update on that, because
Thank you, Mr.
we're looking for the transportation issue.
Thank you.
I guess
Mr.
my time
Mr.
ran out.
Davis.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, how can you continue a public meeting and take public comments without a quorum?
We can still, in fact, I can hold a meeting, and it can be a communication from the chair, even if I do not have anyone else present.
So the public comments that I'm supposed to be giving to a quorum will be recorded as if I were speaking to the quorum,
But you will be speaking to the Transportation Committee.
but there is no quorum. But I will continue nonetheless. There is no quorum. Councilman Rosenthal, piecemealing CEQA is a violation of CEQA. That means if you have several projects that have a cumulative effect on the environment, you must consider them as a whole, such as the proposed private parking districts that are coming on deck, to add to one which has already been approved. You cannot piecemeal CEQA. This will have a cumulative effect on the environment by removing a lot of parking from the coastal zone during certain times of the day, and it's not permitted by law. Secondarily, I'd like to criticize the city attorney for not fully considering submission. Well, it's probably inappropriate for me to do that right now, but I think the city attorney in the future, when legal issues are brought before him, should not only answer the ones that he wishes to answer to in part, but answers to each and everything that has been brought to his attention in the legal realm. And I think that also, as you go forward in this process with further parking districts as you propose, you better go through the CEQA process. You better notify the clearinghouse, which then notifies the state-affected agencies, such as the Coastal Commission and Fish and Game, and they respond to the clearinghouse, who comes back to you. You can't just take a letter from some arcane person at the Department of Fish and Game without a schedule number and consider that
already
legitimate.
considered, so if you'd like to make general comments.
Well, since there is no quorum, my comments are done, and I don't think that it's a legitimate time to take comments anyway.
Thank you.
Good day.
Hi, thank you very much, Council Member Gruhl and Rosenthal, for sitting and actually paying attention to my public comment. You know, it means a lot to me. I just want to make sure you know that I appreciate that, because I've sat in City Council and had people not pay attention to me. And it's very frustrating, considering I don't live anywhere near here. The city is creating permit parking systems that are based on California Vehicle Code. And unfortunately, your transportation person wasn't able to quote that code. But in that code, and I don't have the number, but I've read it many times, in this code, it has very specific requirements for public hearings, which is based on government requirements, which are not being met by the city in doing this. So you're basing these laws on a California law that has very specific requirements of a government type of public hearing that includes newspapers. So you're not doing that, and you are going forward with a law based on another law, and you're not following through with the original law or the intent of that law. So that's an important issue, and I think you should pay attention to that, because the public has a right to know, not just the residents or the residents 300 feet away. Two, the city of Santa Monica, I, through a public records request, got a copy of the of this incredible, highly detailed survey taken. Amazing amount of time spent on the survey taken by the city of Santa Monica. And I was really taken back that they did this survey. And so this is based on an OPD. And so in the coastal zone, if you're going to restrict parking and you're going to base it on what another city does, you might want to actually look at what the other city does.
Go finish it.
Just want to finish sentence, please.
Because the city didn't just take license plates and put them through the DMV to find out what the zip code was. They went door to door, and they had a series of questions that they asked of each resident of the areas being affected and beyond. It was an amazing survey, and it must have taken a long time.
Okay. Thank you very much, and thank you for coming down for your public comment. Seeing no other public comment cards, this meeting is adjourned. Thanks, Ann.